Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 71. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Monday, Steelers Nation. Pittsburgh having the weekend off after their Wednesday Christmas Day loss, but despite the Steelers not playing, their playoff picture becomes a little bit clearer based on the events happening on Sunday. Just FYI, Dave and I are recording this Sunday evening around 6 o'clock p.m., so any news and notes that may change by the time we record this and the time you listen to this, just a heads up there. Dave, how you doing?
Happy Sunday. Kind of a weird couple of days here with the Steelers playing so early in the week. We've watched Thursday football. We've watched Saturday football. We've watched almost on into the second half of the Sunday games here. And in fact, it's halftime right now. Minnesota and Green Bay. That's the game I'm tuned in to, and kind of keep an eye on this Dolphins-Browns game that's not overly exciting. We kind of got a couple more pieces of the puzzle at least kind of figured out, I think, in this early games with the Buffalo Bills blowing out the Jets. That means they have the number 2 seed now, so that means the Steelers will not be facing the Buffalo Bills in a wild card game. And due to the Bengals in that exciting game on Saturday against the Broncos getting the win, they're still alive. So at the time we're recording this, and that could change in the next second half here, the Dolphins, Broncos, and Bengals are all alive for that last AFC spot. Now, if the Dolphins were to go on and lose to the Browns, they are up 13-3 on the Browns right now. But if the Dolphins lose, I think they would be eliminated, and that would leave the Bengals and the Broncos battling for the last AFC spot. And whether or not the Dolphins win could decide whether or not the Steelers maybe play on Saturday against the Bengals. So how's that for an opening?
A lot going on. Hopefully you guys have a notebook handy to write all this stuff down, because there's a lot of implications, a lot of scenarios for the Steelers team to try to summarize it as neatly and nicely as possible. Basically, given what's happened today in this week 17, the Steelers can either be the 3, the 5, or the 6 seed, correct, Dave? And can you kind of walk us through how they could attain or fall to all those spots? As of right now, they are the 5 seed, but there are paths for them to either stay there, of course, or become the 3 seed, or even drop a spot to the 6 seed. What they cannot do, they cannot become the 1 seed, the 2 seed, or by virtue of the Broncos' loss, they can no longer be the 7th seed either.
Right, and the only way they become the 3 seed is by winning the AFC North, and for that to happen, they would have to beat the Bengals, and then the Ravens would have to lose to the Browns in Week 18. So, stranger things, I guess, have happened. I wouldn't, that's probably the least likeliest of all the scenarios there. And then they would be the 3 seed if they were to win the North. But I'm not expecting that to happen. Obviously, if they beat the Bengals, they would be the number 5 seed, and then that would mean they would go on the road and play the Houston Texans in the wild card game. I suppose too that if they were to lose to the Bengals, and if the Chargers were to, I guess, lose to the, who do they play? Raiders in Week 18. That's another way that the Steelers could be the 5 seed and still play the Texans. Now, if for some reason the Steelers don't get the 5 seed and get the 6 seed instead, then that would mean that they would play the Ravens on the road in the first round wild card playoffs. And the only way I believe they could play the Chargers in the first round is if they win the AFC North and end up as the 3 seed, and the Chargers as the 6th seed, I believe.
And for Pittsburgh to become the 6th seed, they would have to lose to the Bengals, and the Chargers would have to beat the Raiders, correct?
Is it win or tie?
Yeah.
The
Not sure on ties.
Chargers would have to do. Let's see.
Might be a tie.
Yeah, they're both tied right now on record. So if the Steelers were to lose to the Bengals, and if the Chargers were to win or tie against the Raiders, then the Steelers would drop down to the 6th seed then.
And I know a tie is unlikely, but it was only a couple years ago we were all staring down a Raiders-Chargers tie, and Daniel Carlson had a game-winning field goal that prevented a tie from happening and punched Pittsburgh's ticket into the playoffs. So we always point out the tie because you never know when it could actually come up. And frankly, it's not a crazy thought that Pittsburgh loses to the Bengals this weekend, whether that's Saturday or Sunday, and the Chargers have a good chance, I would say, of beating the Raiders. And so I would say the 5 and 6 seed are the most likely spots Pittsburgh will finish, but 3, 5, and 6 seed all on the table right now.
Yeah, and as far as and we should find out, I would imagine later on tonight, whether or not the Steelers will play on Saturday or Sunday next week. And there's a lot of, the Colts lost today, so they're out of the playoff picture now. So their game becomes meaningless. We'll see what happens with this Dolphins game. If the Dolphins win.
Yeah, assume the Dolphins win. They're up 13-3 still, like you said. Let's just assume that for the moment.
If the Dolphins win, then that keeps them, the Broncos, and the Bengals still all alive entering the final week of the season. And then the Dolphins play the Jets next week, while the Broncos play the Chiefs. And you want to create some type of scenario, I think, where you have at least, if something goes wrong on Saturday, that you still have things that could go right. What I'm getting at here is if you had the Dolphins, if the Dolphins beat the Browns today, and if you had the Dolphins play the Jets on Saturday next week and the Dolphins won, well, then that would automatically eliminate the Bengals chances, because the Bengals need the Dolphins to lose at least one of their 2 games. So I don't know if the league would go that way. Conversely, I don't think you'd want the Chiefs and the Broncos playing on Saturday, because if the Broncos were to win that, it makes everything in the Dolphins and the Bengals game moot at that point, as far as those those teams in particular there. So I would think, and plus because of ratings and all as well too, I would think that if the Dolphins beat the Browns, that you might want the Steelers and the Bengals to play on Saturday. And even if the Steelers were to win that game, at least you have still a little bit of mystery going on between the Broncos. You would have the Broncos playing the Chiefs and the Dolphins playing the Jets, I would imagine, at the same time on Sunday. That's about as. Now, the only other option in there I think that could be kind of meaningful is the Chargers game against the Raiders, just as far as potential seeding goes, right? So, but I mean, how attractive would that game actually be on Saturday?
Not very.
So now if the Dolphins were to lose to the Browns, perhaps you would want something where you have the Bengals, Dolphins, and Broncos all playing at the same time. You know what I'm saying?
But locations get tougher, right? Because it's East Coast versus the Denver game. I don't know if Miami and Denver would play at the same time. What I think your general premise is correct, though. At the least, the NFL would want the Bengals to play before Denver, because the Chiefs are going to rest starters, no Mahomes, none of their key guys. Let's assume Denver wins that game. No guarantees, but that's going to be the working assumption I think we can all work under. Also, just more fair from a scheduling standpoint. The Bengals played on Saturday, Pittsburgh played on Wednesday, so I make a team on a Sunday, have to play on a Saturday with a shorter week. And so the Bengals would have a normal 7-day work week. Pittsburgh obviously would have still the extended, it will become a 10-day layoff. Makes more sense to do that for those 2 teams too.
Yeah, that's true there. And plus, I mean, the ratings would be good for Steelers Bengals. So I don't know, that's a lot of math that might end up becoming useless, but There's not many games in the AFC at this point looking like they'll have significance, overall here. So, like I said, by the time this gets up at midnight on, to later tonight, first thing Monday morning, the news should already be out. So
Yeah. So we spent a lot of time talking about something that people already know, but for our own health,
right.
and we like to work these things out in our own head. That's why I wanted to make clear we're recording this Sunday evening. But yeah, the NFL should announce that during the Sunday night game. I think it's later in the game, second half or so. They release the schedule. So if you had to guess, just make you put you on the spot right now and guess right now when, what day, and what time slot. Because there's the 1 p.m. game. I think there's the two games after.
I would guess Saturday, the early slot.
Yeah, I'll say Saturday at 1 as well. So,
and wasn't it last year that the Steelers also played on Saturday of week 18 against was it the Ravens?
I believe you're right. It was a Saturday.
That was a fourth. Okay, well, on Saturday, then they only have a early and a late game.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm looking back, and last year was 4:30 and 8:15 on Saturday. It was the Ravens hosting the Steelers, and it was the Colts hosting the Texans.
Do they not have? It's not 3 games. This.
I'm just telling you what happened last year. I
Okay.
haven't. I would imagine it's only going to be 2 on Saturday again.
Okay.
But I don't know what the time slots are yet. So
okay, I know they had 3 yesterday, and I could have sworn I saw something about 2 on. I don't know. Well,
it might be. It might be. So I haven't gone that far down the rabbit hole. All I know is there's going to be at least 2 games on Saturday, I would think.
Right, and people know by now when they listen what the result will be. But I think there's a good chance, no matter the time slot, Pittsburgh will play the Bengals in Acrisure on Saturday.
Man, let's hope it's not Saturday night, right?
Dude, I thought I was done with the night games.
I know. All right, we'll see.
All right, Dave, where to from here? Some other news that came across to kind of get some of the housekeeping out of the way, according from Jerry Dulac, and it's really the NFL's worst kept secret, but according to Dulac, the Steelers are expecting to play in Ireland in 2025 in Dublin. That is likely to become a home game for Pittsburgh because they have 9 home games slated for next season, and just feels right given that Pittsburgh and their Irish roots, and technically the home team for that week kind of becomes the ambassador for the game to go over early, take part in some of the festivities, and makes more sense for Pittsburgh to do that than whatever opponent they would play. And so not official, but it's been rumored for weeks and months, and Rooney's talked about it, and Goodell's talked about it, and it's been speculated. But it seems all but certain Pittsburgh will play in Ireland next year, their first international game since the London game in 2013. And hopefully this result will be much better than the last one.
Yeah, and we will know the Steelers' opponents for 2025. We know most of them except for 3 anyway, due to the NFL's rotating schedule. The final 3 that are not locked in stone just yet are determined by order of finish within the divisions there. So if you want to look at where the Steelers currently sit right now as far as quote unquote home games, obviously you got Baltimore, Cincinnati, and Cleveland. They also play the AFC East in 2025, and their two teams out of that division that they'll play at home are the Bills and the Dolphins. They also play the NFC North Division, and the two teams out of that division that will be at home are the Packers and the Vikings. And then they'll play the one team, depending on order of finish in the division, from the AFC South, and right now that would be the Colts. They would also play an NFC West team, and the team depends on finish in the division, and right now that would be the Seattle Seahawks there. So potentially, that's where they're at today. Next week, by next week we'll have definitive on who all of their opponents will be. But if you're talking about a game in Ireland in 2025, and you're talking about the Steelers being the quote unquote home team, it would be potentially one of those 9 teams that I just rattled off. And it's hard to believe it would be a divisional game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would leave, as things sit right now, the Bills, the Packers, the Colts, the Dolphins, the Vikings, or the Seahawks. Could it be a Vikings? Could it be a rematch of the last international game the Steelers played, Steelers and the Vikings? That probably wouldn't be a bad one, but still a lot to be determined there. But it does indeed, and you're right. It's kind of the worst kept secret that it's shaping up that the Steelers will play in Ireland in 2025.
And as soon as week 18 ends, I know, Dave, you're always the best at tracking this and always the first to put it out there. We'll have a post on the official opponent list for 2025. And so be sure to check that out. It's pretty crazy, Dave, that for as global of a team as Pittsburgh, and you could argue they're top 3 in terms of the most globally recognized NFL teams in football, they have not played internationally since 2013. That was Le'Veon Bell's first career game. That's how long ago it was. And I know there's been maybe some speculation there was issues with Pittsburgh from the lease standpoint of the stadium where they had to play at least 8 home games there per season. And so they couldn't have a home game away in a particular year. I know they were going to play in Mexico City, or at least there was some thought they would play in Mexico City a year or 2 ago, but stadium construction issues delayed and postponed that idea. So there's been maybe some weird things that have prevented that. But yeah, you just would have thought along the way for how many international games this league is now playing that Pittsburgh would have done so over the past 11 years.
Yeah, then a couple of COVID years mixed in there potentially as well. Who knows how that impacted things as well? But yeah, that's a long span, and I would think at some point here, not too far in the near future, the league's going to want teams to play at least one game internationally a season. Each and every team.
It's trending that way. I think the idea of a franchise being over there is still a long ways off if it ever occurs, but the NFL can easily substitute that and kind of have a de facto franchise by just rotating it and, like you said, having each team play at least one game internationally per year.
All right.
Some other piece of news to bring it back stateside and bring it back to week 18, now that the Bengals officially have everything to play for come the regular season finale. And I know we had speculated would they maybe when we talk about resting guys, we're not talking about resting every single player, but would some guys sit out the finale had the Bengals been eliminated by this point? Would T. Higgins play a pending free agent, not risk injury? Would guys that were beat up, would they play? None of that is, it's all moot right now. So the question is, though, from an injury standpoint, will Bengals running back Chase Brown play? He suffered an ankle injury in freak fashion at the end of the fourth quarter of that win over Denver. He was attempting to slide to stay out of the end zone to allow the Bengals to kick a game-winning field goal with no time left. Ends up getting hurt. Reportedly from Jordan Schultz, a high ankle sprain. Rappaport saying that Brown still has a chance and could play against the Bengals. And so that's probably their largest injury. T. Higgins has also battled some stuff. I assume he'll play, but want to watch him as well. He went off against Denver. But Chase Brown, who's been their lead back for the latter half of the season, the biggest name to watch from a health standpoint for this weekend's game.
Yeah, and then you have to wonder about if the Steelers do end up playing the Bengals on Saturday. That's one fewer days that he has to recoup there. And look, they make their living throwing that football, but Chase does play an integral part not only in the running game but in the passing game as well too. So that would be a bit of a loss on them. Look, the Bengals have been playing. They've been surviving. And they should have probably, they had that easy field goal at the end of the game against the Broncos, and they doinked it. Then I'm thinking to myself, man, what a way to, you fight all that way. What a way to go out. But then the Broncos said, hold my beer, and went 3 and out and in overtime and punted. You just had a feeling that once they had to punt that ball back again, that Burrow was going to make them pay. And they're playing really good football right now. Obviously, being able to throw the football. This is going to be a tough, and they are motivated. They're going to be in a situation where they know they have to absolutely win this game and then get a few more pieces of help to get in. So even though this is in Pittsburgh and the Steelers beat the Bengals several weeks ago, this is going to be a tough one to round out the season here.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to guess Brown's going to do all he can to play in this one, but certainly will be the thing to watch. And again, any questions over would some half-injured guys suit up. Had the Bengals had nothing to play for besides spoiler, obviously some guys would have played, some starters definitely would have played, but it's all out the window now. And imagine the Bengals getting the playoffs, Dave. They're on a hot streak with that offense, or the defense is still a mess, but they made some plays against Denver. They kept the score down. Watch out for Cincinnati.
Boy, and if they got in at this as the 7, they would have to play Buffalo, right? So
Right.
That you might have to add some zeros to the scoreboard or something. I don't know there, but that would be definitely an entertaining matchup for sure. And what if the Broncos end up tanking this out? But they would obviously have to lose to a Chiefs team that has nothing to play for at this point. Hard to imagine Mahomes and several other of those key people are going to play in that game against Denver. So the Bengals could play their heart out all this way, beat the Steelers, and still not get into the playoffs.
Right. Yeah, Denver, you would expect to win, but you never know what could happen. And speaking of the Chiefs, and how about some Steelers quarterbacks not currently on the roster to talk about? What a Sunday it was for former Steelers quarterbacks, Mason Rudolph, Mitch Trubisky, and Kenny Pickett, all throwing touchdown passes. And for that Week 18 Chiefs game, reportedly, old friend Chris Oladokun could make his NFL debut. Carson Wentz will start in that finale with Mahomes resting, but apparently the Chiefs would like to see some action from Oladokun, the Steelers' 7th-round pick in 2022, the second quarterback they'd taken that year after selecting Kenny Pickett in the first round. So Pickett starting today, Sunday, for the Eagles, got hurt, had rib injuries coming into the game, did not finish, but to a touchdown pass as the Eagles routed the Cowboys. Trubisky came in relief of a laugher win over the Jets and threw a touchdown pass. And Rudolph, unfortunately, did not get the win, lost to Jacksonville, but threw a touchdown pass to Nick Vanetz, of all people, the one-time Steelers tight end. I know you're tweeting. I didn't even know that until you had to tweet about it. You were blowing my mind on that one, Dave.
All we need now is for Joshua Dobbs to make an appearance for the 49ers. When is that? Is that tomorrow night?
Yeah, that's the Monday game, I believe.
Yeah, I doubt he plays, but how crazy would it be if Dobbs got in and threw a touchdown pass? You'd have a bunch of Steelers former quarterbacks throwing touchdown passes in Week 17. So, yeah, little oddity and things that you kind of get Week 17, Week 18 of NFL seasons.
Not to get too reflective, still in the middle of the season, and we'll have plenty of time postseason to talk about these things, but what do you make of the Steelers quarterback overhaul now compared to your feelings as it was happening back in March?
Well, I mean, look, it would have been interesting to see Russell Wilson not have to deal with that calf injury early and have played the full slate. Even so, the Steelers, won what was it? 4-2 in those games. Their defense really let them down in that game against the Colts. Even so, it still came down to a late possession in that game. You're still in that game, and the same with the Cowboys. I mean, you're one defensive play away from winning that game. Even so, I think Russell Wilson has had his brighter spots, especially right out of the chute in what was it, the first 5-6 games there, some mistakes that, and this offense has regressed. And obviously missing George Pickens has played a huge part in that. You would have liked to have seen how this offense could have been not missing George Pickens for the number of games that they had, because any deep threat, any ability to keep prevent the box from being stacked and Pat Freiermuth from seeing a lot of attention starts first and foremost from not having George Pickens. Now you get George Pickens back for this game against the Chiefs, and you still had opportunities in that game. Wilson throwing obviously the interception in this game was a killer, taking as many sacks as he did as well too. That's a long way of saying I think the quarterback position has gone kind of as maybe I thought it would. I thought maybe Wilson would be a tick better than what he's been, maybe specifically in these last couple of games. His adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat is obviously under 7 at this point. I thought it would be a tick higher. Could have done that with a few of these, obviously these turnovers as of late, and a few of these sacks as well too. But their defense has really let them down the last couple of weeks on top of it. And this was never probably in our eyes a offense that we thought was going to hang 30 on opponents on a week in and week out basis. This was going to be a very complimentary type football team. And as of late, they haven't got it from the defense. So as a whole, I'm okay. But I mean, you still got, I don't, the goal of this thing is to get into the playoffs, win at least one playoff game, maybe two, and then kind of reevaluate from there. But I do think Russell Wilson has been kind of what we thought he would be, gives you the deep ball component, generally took care of the football overall. We knew he was going to take some sacks. Surprised to see him use his legs a little bit as much as he's been able to, but one of those obviously ended up in a fumble as well too. So it could have been worse. Would this team have won the games, had the record that it had at this same point of the season, had Kenny Pickett been the starter? I don't think so.
What games, and I usually don't like going down this path because it's all just guesswork, but what games do you think they won this year that a Kenny Pickett wouldn't have won?
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, that's hard to do, obviously. I don't
And I
know.
don't mean that as a leading question. I'm just asking,
Yeah,
open, because they still probably beat teams like the Giants and the Jets
right.
by lesser margins, you would think. Did they beat Washington, though? Did they beat the Ravens in the first game? Beat the Bengals is probably
The
the one people would point
Chargers.
towards. The defense played so well
Yeah.
and got her. But I think some of these more recent games, a shootout, I think people would point towards and say Kenny Pickett's probably not throwing for 400 plus and having the type of game that Russ did. Yeah, I think you summed it up well. The quarterback room got better, and that was Pittsburgh's intent. It got more playoff caliber. It's struggling towards the end, and as you said, the way this room and the moves will truly be defined is by how the season actually ends come the playoffs. If hypothetically, I know people will laugh at it, but just if Pittsburgh goes on a run and gets a big upset win and makes the AFC Conference Championship game, then we're feeling a whole lot better than we are about it right now. And if Pittsburgh is one and done and blown out in the playoffs, we're feeling even worse than we do right now, which is not great at this particular moment. But short answer, I have no regrets about what Pittsburgh did. I think they were the right moves. They've proven to be the correct moves, both acquiring Wilson, trading for Fields, pivoting to Wilson midseason. All those steps were correct. The big question will be, will Pittsburgh re-sign Russell Wilson? And if so, for how much and for how long? And that'll be the question that will dominate the conversation after the season.
My biggest thing about this offense, at this point of the season is even with the offensive line injuries, obviously that they had, and you had a couple of rookies coming in Frazier and Mason McCormick, and you obviously lost a rookie in Fautanu and all like that. But with the continuity that the group has had for several games now, and the running back situation and all like that, I expected the running game to be a lot further along than it is. That's been very disappointing as a whole. They just don't have continuity. They can't lean on it. They can't be that team that they want to be for several reasons. A team that wants to be multiple tight ends, a team that just wants to wear you down, bully ball you, establish the run, and then try to get out of games with just dropping back and throwing 24, 28 times a game and all like that. And the further we've got into this, and obviously the quality of the teams has gone up in the second half of the season, especially these last 3 or 4 games, is they, when you get late into the into these schedules, into the winter, into this type of football, and all the way the Steelers are built, they need to be able to run the ball well, and they just haven't, and that's put a lot of stress on the passing game. And then you couple that with the fact that this defense is not living up to expectations, then it puts all of it primarily on a passing game overall, and they're just not built to be that team. So it would have been interesting had through the second half of the season, had the running game been better. They're towards the bottom of the league. I mean, let's face it, as far as success rates and EPA, as far as that goes, had they been better, how much of an impact would that be made on the passing game? And then, oh yeah, missing your best player in George Pickens for numerous games is definitely going to hurt, especially when, you look at the rest of the wide receiving core that this team has.
Why hasn't the run game been better is a question that's been circling around my mind. Because as you said, the continuity for the O-line was there. They've been, knock on wood, remarkably healthy post-bye week. They had all the injuries early in the season. They seem to have more success. I wonder, and I haven't thought about it a lot, was Pittsburgh a better running team early in the season, or was it a byproduct of them simply winning games and playing with the lead and allowing a volume of rushing attempts as their key to victory and their key to their rush success? Were they truly better, or was there just more of it?
Yeah, it might have been more of it. Particularly,
there definitely was more of it, but did that make them look better than they actually were? Because they were not incredibly efficient. They were having marquee rushing performances early in the season.
Right. But I mean, look at the explosive play rate and all like that, even of the 10-yard variety and all like that. It was doing just enough. And then obviously you get into games like against the Falcons early and, some of these other teams, the Chargers, where they're able to kind of wear them down type situations based on volume. Was it ever really great? No. They're just, I mean, I know you watch games throughout the week as best as you can and all like that. They don't get the push and they don't get the second level stuff. It seems too finesse at times as opposed to straight out just trying to blow the guys off the ball. And look, I mean, if it doesn't get any better the rest of the way, and especially if they take a first round wild card exit out of this thing, I think you really got to take a hard look at Pat Meyer and, your run game coordination and everything along with that, because I mean, they got so many draft picks now invested in this offensive line, right? I mean, moving forward, if they draft an offensive lineman in 2025, you would not expect that to be in the first 3 rounds, right?
Not as we stand, and I hear you on that. And I should also mention for the first half of the season, of course, you had Justin Fields and his rushing success played a component with his legs and the threat of his legs and all those things that came along with it. So one obvious point I want to make sure that we point out there. I hear you on that. I mean, but Frazier has played well. We all agree Frazier, I think, has played well.
Sure.
McCormick, I think, has done a nice job at right guard. He's not been as good as Frazier, but he's had, I think, more on his plate trying to flip over. Broderick Jones has not taken the steps that we hoped that he would, but there's been some improvement the back half of the season. And of course, Fautanu got hurt and played in all of one game before going down. So, what player is not developing well under Pat Meyer?
I think it's just as a unit as a whole. Because I think what you have right now is the personnel that you're going to have at least working with into next season there. Now you Fautano will be part of that in some form or fashion, right? You won't have, probably aren't going to have Dan Moore. So you add in, let's say you subtract Dan Moore, you add in Troy Fautano. I mean, I suppose you could say that there might be a question at left guard, but I can't see him moving on from Sayamalo right now at this point. So, you just got to maximize what you're doing. There just seems to need to be more push. I think you just got to be able to see this team get more push at the line of scrimmage, have less contact behind the line of scrimmage, more of it past the line of scrimmage. We've seen Jaylen Warren get hot at times throughout this thing. I'd like to see, even starting this game against Cincinnati, come out and let Jaylen Warren be the workhorse. I think they've been too concerned at times about kind of rotating through the backs. I mean, Najee Harris, what was one of the knocks coming on of Najee Harris coming out in the draft? Explosive playability. Now, he did, to his credit, have a couple of seasons ago more than what we thought, but just on a down for down basis, he's not going to be that guy that rips off the 25-yard against you. And what did we just say a couple of shows ago there? What's the longest run from from scrimmage this team has this year. And then you look around some of these other teams around the league, hell, even the damn Browns, get these 40, 50, 60 yarders out of their running backs and all. So either you need to look at scheme, style, of blocking, what you're doing up front. Do you need less mid zone, more pulling, more gap type stuff, outside zone? You're going to have to change up something, because if you run, if you just take Dan Moore out of this, put Troy Fautano in it, keep Pat Meyer there, keep a lot of things the same. Now, you obviously probably not going to have Najee Harris. I mean, and if let's say both the quarterbacks come back, what are you really expecting to change other than maybe adding yet another tight end to the mix? Because you're still going to have Pat Freiermuth. You're still going to have Darnell Washington. You can make assumptions right now whether or not Connor Hayward or Michael Pruitt will be part of that. They need to upgrade one, if not both of those positions next year. Obviously, you would hope your wide receiver core is better than it is next year. I don't see how it couldn't be better at this point. But I think it starts during the offseason about analyzing what you can do with that personnel that you have up front with getting the blocking scheme better, getting more output from your running game.
You'd have some changes, though. Like you said, you would have some changes along the offensive line. You'd be adding a running back if Najee Harris departs, potentially a tight end, be adding a receiver, and just the natural growth of a pretty young offensive line. Frazier and McCormick as rookies, and Broderick Jones going into his third year, all that kind of stuff. So there could be some natural progress even from the guys that are currently there. I made the comment about Pat Meyer, not to advocate to keep him. I haven't settled in on my thoughts on keep this coach, fire this coach. I'll do all that kind of once the season plays out. But I just look at coaching kind of in two buckets. A, the individual evaluation. Do players grow, develop? Are their guys not being maximized as much as they should based on the current coaching? And then, of course, just the actual production of the group. How well did that unit play? The strength of the pack, being the pack, to take the Tomlin term. And I think you're right. Looking at the group at large, they've not taken the step that they should, especially this back half of the year. I do wonder, is it a tired group because you had these rookies in Frazier and McCormick, and those guys are experienced and veterans and professionals, but still there's the attrition of the season. Najee Harris just looked worn out in that Chiefs game. And I wonder, was he feeling it from kind of being the workhorse back early in the year as Warren battled injuries and Patterson missed time, and a lot more was put on Harris's shoulders? I don't know if that's playing a factor or not, but I wonder if some of those components up front just got worn down, especially the offensive linemen, and not just because they're rookies, but because you have no break as a rookie from the time your college career ends. You go from end of your college career, and Frazier was rehabbing from his broken leg, but you go from that to training, to all-star games, to NFL Combine, to pro days, to more training, to private workouts, to draft, to rookie minicamp, to OTAs and spring ball, to training camp, to preseason, to regular season. It has been a nonstop process for all these guys. So I don't want to make excuses. They got to be better, but I just wonder if there's kind of some attrition affecting this unit.
Well, look, EPA, at least at this current point in time, rush per EPA stat, they're 22nd in the league. When you look at rush success rate, they're 24th in the league at 37.2%. That's and that's 24th overall in the league. I mean,
they've not been good. They've been a volume rushing team. They're still second in rushing attempts, I think, top 5 at least, but they've not been an efficient running team.
Right. And yeah, I think you just got to take a hard look at that, because like I said, yeah, you might have one piece of that change on the offensive line next year. And look, I think Frazier's going to be absolutely fine. I think McCormick, once he maximizes his pass protection ability and gets a little bit more experience in here, I think he's going to be fine here. I think you can get another year out of Isaac Seumalo. You do obviously have questions about both those tackles from a pass protection standpoint, but we've barely even seen Troy Fautano, so you would think you're going to get some improvement there. Is changing out just one of those players going to make that much difference in your running game, especially if you have the same two quarterbacks and let's say you upgrade one or two of the tight end positions in the depth position, because you almost have to, because you run so much 12 and 13 personnel.
Sure, but if we're saying the issue is, well, how good is the offensive line going to be? But is there a theory to change out any of those guys? If we're concerned about how good they're going to be, and yet we're saying, well, we're just going to keep the same guys.
I think you just bring in another coach and see what you can maximize out of that.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair point. That'd be a fair reason to advocate. But again, when you look at the young guys that Meyer has had, like Frazier's played well. I think McCormick has played well. Like, what young guy? Broderick Jones is the one to point to, but you've seen Meyer work with some of these young guys. So the point is, when you do bring in a new coach to develop the young guys, and yet the young guys are developing, then what is kind of the point? Or maybe those guys just aren't developing the way that we think that they are. Maybe because the results are just simply not there.
Yeah, but I'm more apt to change out the coach to see if he can get more out of them.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. And when it comes to potential offseason coaching changes, and again, we're going to talk about a lot of this once the season actually concludes in, let's say a couple of weeks, but there aren't going to be a ton of names to talk about, I wouldn't think, unless Arthur Smith leaves for a head coaching job, which is looking less and less likely. Then he's going to, of course, be back. And what other changes could happen on the offensive staff? I mean, he just brought in Azani. Faulkner, I think they like. He signed, I think, an extension, so he's going to stay. You just hired Tom Arth. I imagine Alfredo Roberts will stay unless he were to retire or something. There aren't really a lot of other offensive coaching changes you can make. And defensively, what could happen there, Dave? I mean, Terrell Austin will be the name that will get talked about.
Sure.
Outside of him, not really sure what other name could be considered.
Yeah, and I don't know the specific what's a contractual situation of Pat Meyer right now.
Yeah, I'll have to check. I'm not sure. These things obviously aren't typically public knowledge. Probably for another show, I can try to get that too.
It just, look, we're going way away from what the actual problem is here. Is they're not a good enough running team. They're not running good enough as what we thought they should be at this point of the season, especially with the continuity, albeit with. Look, once Frazier was drafted, you knew it was only a matter of time before he was going to be in the starting lineup. You could probably, have the argument, Mason McCormick got pushed along quicker than what most people thought and all like that. But I mean, even where his draft pedigree was, and then the way injuries happen and attrition and all like that, there was probably a chance he was going to see significant snaps anyway. So it feels like this offensive line, especially with these five playing so much time together now, it feels like they should be further along than where they are at this point of the season.
Yeah, I get that, and I agree that the O-line and the run game should be ascending. They've at best plateaued, and really, I think, probably gotten worse over the latter half of the season, which is, I struggle to figure that out unless it was just because the volume that was there early in the season is no longer there right now. Meyer was hired in 2022. I think, generally speaking, positional coaches signed 2-year deals, coordinators signed 3-year deals, which would mean that Meyer had to have re-signed before 2024 began, which would put his contract through 2025. But I can't take that to the bank and guarantee that. Perhaps the biggest reason to argue for an O-line coach change is to find more alignment with Arthur Smith. That Meyer and Smith, that their visions mesh as ideally as maybe you'd like it to be. I can't say that for sure. I know Meyer's kind of more of a zone guy-ish, and that's Smith's bread and butter, but it was a new OC brought in with an existing O-line coach. Maybe Smith kind of gets to have more of a say in the O-line coach, so that vision becomes better aligned. That may be an argument to make a change.
Sure. Yeah, anyway, I get that.
I know this was like an off-season show, but we're sitting here on the Sunday, and we'll talk about the Chiefs game now, but it's not fun to discuss overall. Just bouncing off of that briefly as the most minor of notes, I didn't realize this even during the game or until I saw the snap count log from you the next day. They did some O-line shifts at the very end there, Dave, where Isaac Seumalo was rested, you could say. Dan Moore was rested. Max Sharping got to play. Spencer Anderson came in first at left guard and then to right tackle, and Broderick Jones shifted over to left tackle to replace Dan Moore. So I thought that was kind of interesting just to see those guys shift around at the very end.
Yeah, and you still leave your starting quarterback in there too.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's Yeah, I guess that maybe that's a captain going down with the ship kind of thing, but we put all that to bed right now.
Right. Now, look, I mean, you needed to visibly go get Ben Roethlisberger off the field, and good luck doing that, and yeah, Russell Wilson probably that same kind of way. But if you're going to do that, you gotta leave the proper personnel out there to protect them.
Yeah, they were throwing. I mean, you're going to keep Russ in and just
Right.
hand the ball off a bunch of times and
Right.
call it a day. But anyway, putting that aside.
Should Jalen Warren get a should Jalen Warren uh be a bell cow, so to speak, in this game against the Bengals? Is it time to start looking at that more instead of trying division of labor and situational and yada yada? Because he's look, and I realized Najee hit the 1,000-yard mark. Kudos to him. I realized Najee had the amount of rushing yards that he had, but a lot of them were in garbage time against the Chiefs and all like that. The guy that gives you the ability to take the football 30 or more yards on any given really run or pass play is Jalen Warren right now at this point.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't know exactly how I would distribute it. I still think Najee should play some, but you have to lean on Warren. That's how I would phrase it: is lean on him. He's running stronger, having more success under him. He missed part of the time early in the season, and so he's probably a little more rested in that sense. And obviously, he's got the hot hand right now. And so, when you're in a dire situation, when your offense is struggling, you've lost 3 straight. Tomlin talked about changes have to be made. We're going to examine things. That's an easy place, I think, to start. So Warren has been playing more than Harris the last 3 weeks. Most of that because of playing from behind, and Warren's the third down back, the pass protector, and so it's naturally game circumstances has pushed things in his direction. But I think even more in early downs where the split's been roughly equal between Warren and Harris, I think you tip those scales certainly to Warren right now.
Right. That's what I would like to see happen. At least, good look, you're going to have to do something here, especially if you want to win this game and make a dent in the playoffs here.
When you look at the All-22 from this Chiefs game, Dave, we had plenty of time to comb through it. What else has stuck out to you? Anything meaningful from the coach's tape?
I thought it was very interesting, all the different breakdowns that you've seen of that interception. First and foremost, of Russell Wilson on the pass in the end zone to Pat Freiermuth. Seen Kurt Warner break it down. Seen Dan Orlovsky break it down. Who hasn't broken it down at this point? I think Kurt Warner kind of focused on more of the kind of hidden details, if you will, about how Pat Freiermuth crossing over the over to the other side of the field. Maybe should have kept that a little bit more vertical aspect of it. When you look at George Pickens and the route that he ran or ultimately didn't run, he didn't really get as jammed as much as maybe as what I thought initially there. But I do kind of wonder if he maybe knew the assignment properly on that one. Overall, and then look, once you do get once he was jammed there anyway, that safety on that side really could discount him. And I know that even that safety went on Twitter and said it wouldn't have mattered. But if you have a clean release by George Pickens to the outside or even inside on that, anything that allows him to get vertical in a hurry, it's going to impact that safety on the backside.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
If it doesn't, he's going to be in the stat book for giving up a touchdown on that. And then looking at the end zone view of Russell Wilson and trying to watch his eyes and all. Once again, I don't know if he necessarily saw it. It did seem kind of predetermined. And I think we even talked the other day about, that came immediately after that penalty, after a touchdown. It felt like Russell wanted to try to get it all back in one play, kind of an assumption that George Pickens is going to run the proper route. In other words, it's going to be there for him. Could Russell maybe have put that more kind of back shoulder, I think, on Freiermuth on there? It would have made an extremely tough catch on Freiermuth, but then you kind of wonder about the other side safety being able to come in and make the play on that. The fact of the matter is it ended up in as an interception there, but the finer details obviously were off. You did not have Pickens running the route that needed to hold the safety on that end. And if indeed people want to talk about guys like Kurt Warner about the route could have been better, at least not not crossing the hashes into the other side of the field. I get it, but I mean, if Pickens is running his route properly, that safety's not going to come into that play anyway. I don't think could the pass have been a little bit better, not so far out to decide that it was. Yeah, I mean, just so many things played into that, and that's what you get when you get a monumental interception like that. You're going to have everybody and their brother breaking it down different ways. And I thought a lot of the commentary on it was good overall.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is Pickens didn't get his route run vertically, especially none, and that safety on that side was able to commit more towards the middle of the field, and it made for an easy pickoff where the ball location was.
Yeah, I have no problem with Fryermuth's route. That's how it's supposed to be run. That bender, like you said, the assumption is that safety won't be there, or if he is, then the ball should not go to Fryermuth, and that's where Russ was trying to place it upfield on that bending, kind of leveraged away from the defenders, not the backside safety, but the other front side players for the trip side. Don't have a whole lot else to add. It's an unfortunate moment, obviously, especially one play removed from that would-be touchdown from Warren that was wiped out by the Darnell Washington hold. I knew Russ is, like you said, kind of assuming, and maybe the toss component hurts Russ in terms of not being able to read that thing the whole way through like you normally would like to be able to. But if you're the quarterback, you are the one throwing the football. You're responsible for reading the coverage and making sure it's a smart and safe throw, and it clearly was not. So, Pickens has to do his job, obviously, and that's a mistake, and that impacts things. But no matter what, the quarterback is responsible for where that ball's going and has to read things before that ball gets out. And if he's assuming, that's a bad habit to have as a quarterback. And so there's blame to go around. I'm not blaming this all on Russ, to be clear, but ultimately he had the red zone interception, and those turnovers, especially in the red area, are critical, and they're really killing this team right now.
All right, and then you look at another throw that we talked about the other day, the one down the left-hand side to Mike Williams. Yeah, it's only one play, but I mean, if you get that ball up a little bit higher there, that probably should have been a touchdown on that play. Yeah,
I can forgive that one. I think the
sure,
DB
but I
just
mean,
made an awesome play
in a game against the Chiefs and all like that. Where you're already down points, you can't miss those.
Yeah, I just felt like I don't know. The DB just made a really good play.
Made
it's kind of a
fantastic play, right? It's a whole shot.
Yeah, it's not like trying to throw it like true vertically. He's trying to squeeze it in between, and so it's a little tighter throw. I don't know. That one to me is more forgivable than the interception.
Sure, but it's one more play that you did not make in that game, and that one specifically could have went for a touchdown on that one.
Right, and that could, or at least a big gain, a huge play. What was the down and distance? Was that a third down play? That one to Mike Williams. Kind of the circumstance there in which that one got.
Was that a third?
I think it was third down. I think it was a third down. I don't remember exactly when that came.
I'll search it out real quick. That one was a 3rd and 9 from the 50 with 1:17 left in the first half. So it could have been a huge change. Remember that we talked about that the other day. Came after the too many men on the field for them, so they got new life there. It was the third play after the too many men penalty in that situation there. So that could have been a very, very impactful play in that game. They obviously settled for no points when the Chiefs gave them a gift to maintain the football right there.
Yeah, that was huge because you can make it hopefully at least 13-10 at half, and Chiefs get the ball at halftime, so you can cut into that lead even more. That's even better, and Pittsburgh could not. So certainly a missed opportunity as a whole for that entire drive, that entire sequence, the post-penalty, repossession of the football. Yeah, that's a great point. That was a killer.
Let's see. The running game for what they were able to do with it had its moments, but a lot of, some stuff came a little bit later in the game. I thought Warren had the hot hand for a little bit, both as a back and then, out of the backfield as a pass catcher. Even though George Pickens had 7 targets in this game, felt like they could have used more that way. I think you had you talk about empty routes. Didn't you do something on Van Jefferson and the empty routes run by him this year?
Yeah, he's averaging about 1 reception every 15 targets, or 15 routes run, I should say. One reception every 15 routes, which is a pretty abysmal number by comparison. Calvin Austin's about one reception per 8 routes. Pickens is around 5.5, 6 routes. And so, Jefferson, I understand his value beyond the receiving, the blocking aspect. He plays in some tighter personnel. But I mean, he's basically been, from a snap count standpoint, from a number of start standpoint, your number 2 receiver this year, and he has 21 receptions. The number of guys that have his volume of snaps with that few receptions, it's a very short list. It's like 8 different guys who have done that. So it's really an inefficient season. And while I can appreciate the blocking, I do probably more than most people. I love the grunt work, the hand in the pile guys, and that certainly defines Van Jefferson. But that can't be your number 2 receiver. That can be your number 4 receiver. That can be a specialty guy, a Skoranek type, fine. It cannot be your number 2 receiver for the entire season. And he's had 4 games this year without a reception. And so you just feel like you're playing one guy short out there.
Right. I mean, and it allows, whenever he's out on the field, to make sure you dedicate, your focus being on Pickens and Freiermuth. And then obviously you went through those several games without Pickens on top of it. Thank God Calvin Austin stepped up, in these last several games, like he's been able to do, but he obviously can't be the focal point of an offense. He's going to be a guy that contributes, 4 or 5 receptions a game, and hopefully you break one of those as well too. But you can't. A lot of what has happened in these last several games, you definitely cannot pin on Austin, and nor do I think you can pin on Jaylen Warren. I think those 2 guys have been doing everything they can. Freiermuth, when he gets enough targets, obviously it'll be interesting in this game. Freiermuth's played so well against the Bengals, and obviously this game is not in Cincinnati, but you would think that you'd be able to get the ball to him, but you look at empty routes, and then your tight ends over not named Pat Freiermuth. How many receptions did even Connor Hayward have, and how many of those have been meaningful overall? Mike Williams is obviously still struggling to make impacts in games since he arrived. You would have thought he would have a handful more receptions in him. And look, when you get down like you did against the Chiefs, they're going to be more apt to give up stuff underneath, not get beat up over the top, and so you then get a lot of yards at times, but a lot of ones that just make you run other plays.
To your point, when you made the comment of, taking advantage of, or, when teams double Pickens and all that kind of stuff, it's even less about that, because they're going to double Pickens no matter who that number 2 is. But that guy who's now singled up consistently can't take advantage of being one-on-one, because he's just not better than the other corner that's out there. So you're not really gaining a benefit of, okay, this guy's double, but this guy's one-on-one, because Jefferson's not getting open. He's not getting the football. He's not being productive. Like in the day of AB, when you had AB, he was going to be doubled no matter what, but you had Juju on the other side. So Juju could take advantage of those one-on-one opportunities. And obviously he did in those early days, 2017, 2018, before the knee injuries sapped him. And then, of course, AB went AWOL and got traded. So you just don't have somebody that can take advantage of those one-on-one chances on the other side. This team, Dave, I think really needs a good route runner. They need someone who could naturally separate, get open. They had that with Deontay. They, of course, had that with AB. Pickens as a route runner, I don't know where you come in on that, Dave. It's okay. Austin has improved. I think Roman Wilson has shown in college he could run routes, but who the heck knows for the NFL level? They need some real good route runners. They don't have enough of those right now.
Real quick, it ran through my head. Just try to, there's not many to remember. Van Jefferson's catches outside of that quick slant that he had, couple of games ago that he took, quite a long ways. How many of his seem to have come within structure versus either maybe a last progression read out towards the sideline or extended play type situation along the sideline? Doesn't it by memory seem like more of the latter, where it's last in progression or rollout type situation? He's standing there along the sideline.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I don't expect him to be the primary in a lot of situations, sure. but yeah, I get your point. I mean, there's just not many receptions in general. It's 21 for an entire season, and he only has missed part of one game. He got poked in the eye early in the season and didn't play for most of that, but has been healthy otherwise. So yeah, just however you want to spin it, however you want to frame it, the production has not been good enough. And so that makes wide receiver an obvious top need for this team going into 2025. And by the way, the Dolphins are going to beat the Browns here. This game there's still a couple minutes left, but the Browns are playing uncompetitive football.
All right, looks like that's 13-3 with 3:42 left. So okay,
and the Dolphins are they're at the Browns 7. The Browns turn it over on down. So yeah, that one, barring something crazy, is going to be a Miami victory. Yeah, for this offense, for the run game, I just thought there was some success with the run game. I got a video coming out here probably for Tuesday on Jaylen Warren and his zone reads and his vision on those cuts and breaking down, the different reads you have, your bounce read, your bang read, your bring read. And I think Warren executed all of those things in the loss, but there were too many free runners. I think, Najee Harris did not play well, but a couple of early carries where linebackers are just free guys. No one's climbing, no one's getting off the first level and working to the second level. And so I thought Tranquil ran free for most of the game, and Pittsburgh was not picking up some of those linebackers. And I don't care what running back you have back there. You got free linebackers. They're going to make plays. The run game's going to be hard. That even happened to Warren a time or two. So the zone scheme has still been inconsistent in terms of getting to work to some of those guys. There was some confusion. There was one play where Dan Moore is blocking and Mike Williams are blocking the same guy. And so there's just been some messy stuff on the zone schemes that have hurt Pittsburgh. And
that's why I said at the top when we were talking about the offensive line, they're not getting off enough. They're not getting to the second level consistently enough and taking care of, a lot of those zone blocks.
Yeah. I think, again, to your point, and it's the strongest one to make, I think, against Pat Myers, just the group as a whole. I think individually, if you look at some of these names, there has been some success and improvement, but as a group, as a unit, they have not played well enough, especially down the stretch. And then I thought in pass pro in this game, the tackles are pretty rough. Moore and Broderick Jones. Thought, say, Molly did a nice job picking up a couple of stunts, but just overall, there was probably too much pressure in this game. I don't think Russ helped things and helped maybe create some of that pressure and further some of that pressure, but the O-line, not a good game from them. They did not win the trenches.
Are we not seeing enough run game alternatives, RPO, screens and things of that? I mean, the screen game at least is better, but how could it have been worse for a couple of years that we saw within there? But do we need to see more stuff out on the edges maybe?
Yeah, potentially there could be some extended run game options. Yeah, that was their bread and butter in this one. I don't think Pittsburgh's going to get to that level anytime soon. They run some RPOs where Russ has handed the ball off, and so obviously it's a read type stuff, and so Russ doesn't want to throw it. He doesn't have to. They have tried to throw some to Calvin Austin, and as much as Austin is playing well for them, he is not, to me, that RPO kind of guy. I don't think he's good in kind of those, stop and then start moments. He's got to kind of get up to some speed. And so that I don't like using him then. And there really aren't a lot of other guys to throw to on RPOs, from screens to Pickens. They've tried, but obviously he gets a lot of attention. Corners are always rolled up on him. And so it kind of makes it harder to throw some of those RPOs to an outside guy with a cornerback rolled up.
And just an overarching kind of concern about this offense, what we've talked about all season, is just that their starts haven't been fast enough at all. You look at their point total in the first quarter. We talked way too much about, there only been 3 first quarter touchdowns by this offense and all. And we just, and that's been an ongoing thing for several seasons now with this team, just not fast enough starts. So they've got to come out with better scripts. They've got to come out with more fluidity. They've got to start moving the football better early in games, or else every game is going to feel like, either just barely ahead or fighting from behind in the fourth quarter of these things.
And I do think with Pickens, like you said, 7 targets for a game in which Pittsburgh threw almost 40 times is not a good number. They do move Pickens around some. I don't want to say he's static in one spot, but I think Pittsburgh could do more to scheme him up and get him the football, just knowing that teams are going to key on him, and every team's game plan is, yes, to take him away, but you got to fight that more than Pittsburgh, I think, is, especially knowing like there's not other options to really rely on consistently. If you had the killer bees era, then you can sit there and say, okay, if they want to, truly double and do everything in their power to take away AB, other guys can step up and win. Pittsburgh, as Pickens' absence showed, not built to do that right now. So you got to really do everything you can to use stacks and bunches and switch releases and just every tool in your belt to find ways to really scheme Pickens open the football. I don't think that's happening enough.
The thing is too, and kind of ending this conversation about the offense on a little bit of a positive here, is we've seen this offense move the ball at times in between the 20s, right?
Yeah, even in this game, there were bright spots. The touchdown drive they had was a nice one, and you got back down there a chance to score again on the interception, and you did literally score before the points came off the board. So there still have been those moments, but fewer and fewer between.
All right. Defensively, coming out of this game against the Chiefs, I rolled back through that one more time even today. The communication and breakdowns on about 5 or 6 plays, just can't happen. And some of these busts or miscommunication are so bad, it makes it so hard to even determine who was in the wrong.
Yeah, these things are always tricky, and the frequency is a problem. It's an obvious concern. Everyone can see that. I have an article out Monday morning, Dave, at my best crack at explaining these breakdowns and why they're happening. And I'm trying to find the common themes and commonality. That's not a word. The common themes.
Or the common .2 player, huh?
Do you think it's one guy?
I don't think it is one guy, but I tell you who's not playing well in the defense, and that's Cameron Sutton. That's Dante Jackson. That's Queen hasn't had a good run of games. I don't think as of late on top of it.
I agree. I mean, I think the 3 central guys that have been involved around the most number of miscommunications have been Patrick Queen, Cam Sutton, and Minkah Fitzpatrick. But I don't think it's fair to put it on, and you're not doing this, but I don't think it's fair to put it on any one guy. I don't think it truly is on one guy. But the article I have, and there's no satisfying answer here, and as we talked about and you just mentioned, coverage busts are so hard to define and assign blame to because what went wrong is a question that only they can really answer internally. I have 3 main ideas and 3 themes that I've seen across these breakdowns from the Baltimore game to the Chiefs game. One, there are times where Pittsburgh is communicating, but the message is not being received. For example, the Baltimore game on the Mark Andrews touchdown, Zay Flowers comes in motion, Minkah Fitzpatrick is pointing to Cam Sutton to help dictate who's going to take who. That message does not get received. They take the same guy. Andrews is open. They talked. One guy talked at least. The other didn't answer. The Xavier Worthy touchdown. Pittsburgh is making the check. You can see Deshaun Elliott point to Worthy in the backfield. You see Queen putting his arms out to make a check and a call. Minkah Fitzpatrick does not get that information. He's late to the flat, and Worthy scores. So there are moments where Pittsburgh, they are trying, they are communicating, but the message is not being received cleanly, and that's creating problems.
And didn't Deshaun Elliott say as much? We're communicating, but people are not doing their jobs.
Right. He said that, we're essentially what you said. Yes. And so I don't want to say it's just been a total lack of communication, but it has been incomplete communication. And certainly if messages are not being received, then the communication is not good enough.
I mean, how many times you see that one play, and I had pointed this out right after the game, and even Brian Baldinger ended up doing a video on it. You see Queen and Landon Roberts go for the same guy, leaves Travis Kelce wide open, And the thing about it is the running back still, I think it was the running back still goes vertical untouched, Yeah,
he wasn't even covered. So, yeah. I think the second theme that I've discovered, or at least I'm trying to look at, and again, outsider view, we're all trying to take our best guesses. Sometimes we're searching for answers in moments like this. I think Pittsburgh has been hurt by speed. I think on those 2 plays, on the Andrews touchdown, the Worthy touchdown, the communication was there, but Pittsburgh had to really react rapidly on the Andrews touchdown. You got the motion coming and trying to communicate as Flowers is coming across. It's not like Flowers motioned and then got aligned and was there for 5 seconds. It's motion, the ball snapped. You have to communicate quickly. That hurts. That stresses communication. Message was not received. On the Worthy touchdown, the Chiefs, they weren't going tempo, but they came out of the huddle and snapped the ball very quickly. Right. They got to the line with like 15 seconds. They snapped it with like 13. And so they know that Worthy's in the backfield. That's kind of an alarm going off. And so as Pittsburgh is communicating that, the snap happens right after. And so the communication was stressed in that moment. So that was on a Hard Knocks in that first episode. I don't know if it was referencing this exactly, but remember Terrell Austin and Mike Tomlin discussing like, hey, teams are hurting us with speed.
Right.
We're seeing that again. We're seeing teams use some tempo, as the Eagles did, as Baltimore did. That was sometimes with some substitution and getting 11 men on and getting aligned, all that kind of stuff, but also in some of the motion and some of the quick snaps that teams are running, the Pittsburgh is not able to get communication out fast enough. I think it's another element of why Pittsburgh is struggling.
And then how's that Chiefs offense built? It's built to be horizontal and work off of speed, the speed that they have.
Yeah, it's a leverage-based offense. They want to win in the flat. They want to win with tempo. They want to out-leverage you and then use their speed to do some damage after the catch.
And then, another aspect of this game, too, is, just how quick that they were getting the football out. Patrick Mahomes was. They were easily neutralizing because of down and distances and those kind of things. So they were able to really neutralize the Steelers' pass rush, fairly well just because of how quick the ball was coming out. I did think Alex Highsmith played a good game in this. I thought you had mentioned Cam Hayward. I went and concentrated. I thought he played a good game overall in this one. I thought Trice played a pretty decent game, and I know he gave up that. I think that one. Was it him or Pierre that gave up the one in the end zone on the corner?
That was Pierre.
Okay, Pierre. So I think Trice, he had a good breakup over the middle on an in breaker on one of them as well too. I thought he had a couple of nice tackles in the game. So I thought Trice played a pretty good game overall. We'll see what happens with Joey Porter Jr. in this game and all. But I mean, is it crazy to ask for Porter and Trice to play? On the outside?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your thoughts on that. Not a crazy thought. I think maybe it's some. At the very least, should
not
Trice
great in man on man. If you're going to play Jackson, it should be zone. But you don't want to make it obvious either that it's going to be in zone because Dante Jackson's out there.
Yeah, I mean they've been more well. What are their zone and man rates this entire year? I'm not entirely sure. If you do start Trice, so that's a heavy matchup against T. Higgins, but do you use Trice and more on Higgins and Porter more on Chase in this game to try to, assuming you get Porter back, I'm not even sure if he's even going to play in this game. There's some questions there. At the least, could you use Trice in that original role to begin the year in dime? Do you reduce, snap counts elsewhere to get Trice some dime work potentially?
Well, Sutton, obviously can't. I mean, he's no longer good in one-on-one either, It hasn't been.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting to put him. Are you saying like as an outside corner or just
just in general? Sutton's been a liability on the field quite a bit.
Yeah, Sutton has not been effective. I think. Do you play BD Bishop more in this one? Sutton played all the snaps in sub in this game because Pittsburgh, when they face those high end quarterbacks, they spin the dial and they want to play a lot of coverages and different packages and they're leaning on veterans to do that. Will they do that again against Burrow? They did in that first matchup. That's when Sutton played more than Bishop, and Bishop only played in dime in that game. Curious to see the direction this time around. But yes, Sutton has not been an asset to them. Just to go back to the communication thing, just my last point on that. And this one was a really common theme. It surprises me how much it seems to be hurting Pittsburgh. Go watch those breakdowns and see how many times that the opposition began in 2x2 and motioned to 3x1. For whatever reason, that's happened in almost all these breakdowns that Pittsburgh has had. And I don't know if that's somehow stressing Pittsburgh more. It shouldn't be tough. Like some of these motions are like not quick motions. They're just standard motion. You get lined up, take a couple beats, and then the ball gets snapped. But in almost all these instances that I point to, the teams have been in 3x1 or motioned to 3x1. And Pittsburgh might just be struggling for whatever reason. They shouldn't be, but for whatever reason, they are struggling to communicate and adjust.
Which obviously shouldn't happen this late in the season.
Yeah, because it's not like we're reinventing the wheel there. I don't know. Maybe I'm grasping, but that's the number of times I've seen that is littered in almost every one of these clips I point to.
Now against the run, and look, we the Chiefs aren't, they did a good job against the run, but I mean that the Chiefs were having so much fun throwing the open people in this game too. I mean they did leave a couple of plays on the field in the passing game overall with who was it? Hunt over there to one side that had one, or was it P. Ryan? I forget, that had a drop over there. And one of them looped over to the right side there. But their quick game, the Steelers had no answer for their quick, short game, the quick motion, the quick snap, like you just talked about down in the red zone over there. They were outclassed and all that. And really, there was only that big play early in the game to Justin Watson. You know, they're not ones that have to make a living off of deep shots down the field. Now, the one to Kelsey obviously was deeper down the field, but he was blown wide open in that situation as well too. So, and I thought the tackling was okay overall in this one. They got paper cut, pretty much to death.
Right. They had no answer to the RPO game, the quick game. It really neutralized Pittsburgh's rush and allowed the Chiefs to win on first down. Their running game, while it was not successful from a pure rushing standpoint, they had so many gains through effective runs, through those extended passes or extended runs that are just those short passes and screens and RPOs and glance routes and swings and all that kind of stuff. And Pittsburgh could not compete, even though apparently the Mike Tomlin his whole mantra was don't get beat to the flat in this game. Apparently, he even, I think Patrick Queen had said this, Tomlin even made T-shirts during the week that said don't get beat to the flat. And again, messages that were communicated and not actually heard.
Right.
Anything else defensively, Dave? Obviously, communication was the number one thing. And so this article, I try to deep dive it as much as possible. And no matter the reason, no matter the issue, they must get corrected. I do think it'll be good for Pittsburgh to have a chance to reset, to actually get the practice. Like when you're struggling and you have issues, glaring like these issues are for Pittsburgh, and you really don't get chances to get quality practice time in, it is tough because you're just not having the chance to rep and work on things. Yeah, there's meetings and film room and all that kind of stuff, but just getting out there on the practice field for just something more than a walkthrough, I think is valuable. And Pittsburgh has missed out on that because of the 3 games in 11 days.
Especially for a team like the Chiefs, right? That
Yeah.
know exactly what they want to do and how they want to do it, and look, 4 or 5 in the red zone is going to kill you in any game.
For sure, it is. Yeah, that's unacceptable. And Pittsburgh's red zone issues are track much further back than just this Chiefs game, who were not great in the red zone coming into this one. And yeah, trying to prepare for Mahomes on 4 days is a nightmare.
And not coming down with pass batted up in the air, go right through. You got to make every play that's available to you when it comes to the turnover battles if you're going to beat a team like the Chiefs, and they obviously did not do it.
And just in general, Pittsburgh's MO to win is win the turnover battle. That's how they win even non-Chiefs games, and certainly not going to beat them when you can't create the big play. And like you said, there was opportunities, the fumble and the punt return, the tip pass, that type of stuff. Pittsburgh has to capitalize on.
All right, the Dolphins went on to win, so they're still alive. So going to be interesting to see if the Steelers play on Saturday or not.
Yep. Again, people probably should know by the time to listen to this, assuming the information comes out here on Sunday night. All right, Dave, anything else from this game you want to go over?
No, sir. I think we got most of it out of the way there.
All right, let's get to some reader emails, close out today's show. I know we didn't do them last episode. We said we would save them for this one. And so I'm sure there's plenty in the inbox to talk about. Also, a reminder, Dave and I will do a live stream on Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time on the YouTube channel. So come hang out with us, and please be a little gentle to
and we don't know when the Tomlin press conference is going to be. Could it be Monday if the game is on Saturday?
Good question. Could be potentially. I do not know. People may know by the time this comes out, but do not currently know when the Tomlin presser will occur.
All right, Todd Gensler, do you think Tomlin is too stubborn for his own good? Playing his guys over more talent could be why the locker room is getting divided. Sutton is out of position and slow. Players see that, and I think that's their beef. Bishop should start over him. Same with Warren versus Harris. Same with not playing Williams and giving Hayward touches over him, and even Washington. I mean, Alex has explained probably why you're seeing, or why the Sutton and Bishop thing's going on, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's playing favorites. I think the idea makes sense. Listen, they didn't want to play Beanie Bishop. They could have found a veteran option before the year. They stuck with him. They really put a lot on his plate early in the season. I don't think it's a favorites thing. I mean, it's one of those things you're either going to agree or disagree on. There's really no way to convince somebody other than that. Connor Hayward has barely touched the football since Russell Wilson became the quarterback for Pittsburgh. He has 2 receptions, I think, since Russ started in week 7. So it's not like he's actively involved in this offense. What was some of the other
he
names
says Warren versus Harris, and Warren has outsnapped Harris.
Yeah, in like 3 straight games.
Yeah.
So.
And he has not playing Williams and giving Hayward touches over him and Washington. Well, remember, this is a 12-13 personnel team at its core.
Yeah, the one Hayward catch was a scramble moment there for Russ. The other one, I think, was designed a Hank concept, but it's not like they're scheming stuff up for Connor Hayward. If anything, I thought Hayward would have had more catches this year as an athlete and somebody that can make an impact in the passing game. He's got, 7 catches this season? So I don't think – I know Williams only has 8 too. But listen, Mike Williams, I'm going to be honest, he's not that good. He's not the old Mike Williams. He can't separate. There's some minor contested catch ability. They threw 2 deep shots to him in this Chiefs game. The one, he got only 1 foot down twice. People can gripe about that. The other one was the one you mentioned earlier, that cover 2-hole shot. They threw a couple to him. It didn't work out. He's just not that good. That's why he didn't do anything as the Jets. He didn't do anything in Pittsburgh. He's near the end of his career. He's tore his ACL last year. He's in his 30s. Like, I try to tell people to temper their expectations for Mike Williams, and I think expectations were just simply set too high because we had spent months and months pining for a receiver. They finally get one, and it's a pretty, mediocre option.
Right. And I think that they know that as well, too, by their ability to get him integrated more. Let's see. Shane Glass says, I've seen this movie before. Hey, guys, I'm frustrated by the team's recent skid, not just because of the results, but because the team is having the same problems for years now. A quick scan of Steelers Depot archives shows defensive miscommunication has been a problem for the last 3 years. Offensively, Alex has talked about the Steelers' inability to scheme up easy yardage like the Chiefs had with their RPO game for years. Changes in coordinators, players, and more haven't solved the problems. What's left that can change to solve these problems that keep happening every year? Happy New Year. Looking forward to a great 2025, he says.
Yeah, it's a good question. I wish I had good answers for it. I know people want Tomlin fired, but that's not going to happen. So, failing that, I don't know what other even potentially satisfying answer I could give somebody right now. But yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, I mean, especially when we dive into this thing, we have been talking and written about miscommunications on the defensive side of football, their inability to scheme up easy yardage, and we'll see what happens with Terrell Austin, I guess, at the end of the year. And they got to get this run game figured out on offense, first and foremost. They have got to get this offensive line and run game figured out moving forward here. That should be number one priority during the offseason, I think. Jerry Jeudy from Matt Johnson. Why do you think the Steelers weren't in on Jerry Jeudy? I would think that with his age and higher ceiling, he would have been worth an additional 4th round pick more than they spent on a 1-year rental on Mike Williams. He was the number 1 drafted receiver the year he came out. Do you think it has anything to do with relationship with Russell Wilson?
I don't know for sure if they were out on Jerry Jeudy. They could have been behind the scenes and we just don't know about it. Right. Other than that, I really couldn't tell you why. He got an extension, right? Once the Browns traded for him, didn't they pay him right after dealing for Jeudy?
I thought so, didn't they?
I believe that's what happened. So maybe Pittsburgh just didn't want to trade for the guy and then pay him sight unseen in the sense of not playing in a Steelers uniform yet. Obviously, there's an NFL resume there, but maybe that was the issue. Did he get traded before Deontay got dealt? What was the timeline on? It was an early offseason deal. I just don't know where it was in relation to. I think it was before Deontay got traded too.
Let's see here. And he signed a 3-year, $52.5 million contract with the Browns on March 18th, 2024.
He got traded on the 13th. Jeudy did. And Carolina, it was right around the same time. I swear I thought Jeudy was traded before. And it was around the same time, though. So I don't know if that timeline was complicating things. It just could be a variety of reasons. I couldn't tell you why. I can't even guarantee that Pittsburgh was not in on him. I know that reportedly the Jets were going to do a deal and that fell through, and then they went to Cleveland instead. So in terms of why deals don't get done, there could be a million different reasons. Judy's obviously played really, really well, but I'm not going to get too mad at every trade Pittsburgh didn't make. I just focus on the ones they do make.
Todd Bays writes in, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. How much of the slow starts fall on Tomlin? Has been a problem for years. Different OCs and quarterbacks, but same issues. Is it his overall philosophy or too much of a top-down approach and not letting his coordinators have control? Combine that with December collapses over the last several seasons. When is enough, he says. Thanks for all the great coverage.
Well, if the when is enough comment, if that's referring to firing him, again, Tomlin's not going to get fired. Right. I get the frustration. I'm not excusing it. You guys know me. I've been I loathe the never had a losing season stat as much as any Steelers fan does.
And I loathe the slow start.
Yeah, and I do put that on Tomlin. I mean, obviously, there's a player component and a coordinator component and all those kinds of things. But when Tomlin consistently talks about not being concerned with those slow starts, and we are not defined by slow starts, I do understand the overall point of the message. But you can't be surprised when your team consistently starts slowly if your head coach doesn't seem to be too concerned about it. So yeah, I do put that on Tomlin.
Let's see here. Nathan Casey, get that high level man-to-man requires passing off and switching coverage to minimize picks and being out of position. Even when passed off correctly, the offense can still win the rep, like when Pierre gave up the red zone touchdown a couple of weeks back. That being said, the Steelers are awful at communication and passing things off. I can't ever recall guys being so wide open because two DBs went with one eligible. Wouldn't it be better to stick to one guy and risk getting picked than for us to continue giving wide open, easy quarterback read completions? This is especially bad in the red zone where our defense has fallen off a cliff. I mean, look, if you start getting into a notion where a team knows that you're not going to, not going to pass it off, then what are they going to do? They're just going to pick you, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of nuance. It's a fair question. I also think another component was a little harder for me to dial in on my breakdown was you're seeing some of these miscommunications come from more switch releases where the innermost number 3 becomes number 1 or something, similar to that, where Pittsburgh's trying to communicate and not always pass things off, but just trying to distribute everything out. So I do think that has been an issue, but yeah, it's just tough because, like you said, if you keep it too simple, then good offenses can take advantage of that, and you are kind of naturally putting yourself in poor situations. And if you do try to add some complexity to it to try to gain the schematic advantage, then you are to be more apt to have some of those coverage busts. So it's tough for sure. There is no easy answer here, but it is tough to play like a simple defense against, say, the Bengals and expect to win because the Bengals just have a ton of firepower.
Okay, let me get one more interesting one here from Travis Pick. It says, Merry Christmas. I can't think of a football question that you guys didn't probably cover, so rather than rehash the gloom and despair, I wanted to ask Dave a question. My son got a record player for Christmas, and we're heading to a used record market in a few days. Can you give him a few must-have albums of stuff you grew up with? Alex, same question to you, but I'll go out on a limb and say we won't be finding it at this place. How about Merry Christmas morning? So this is a little bit older here. I don't know if you want your son listening to some of the stuff that I grew up, but I think for a well-rounded kid, I don't know if you can find. There was some Beatles obviously in the house. I can remember my first record player listening to Meet the Beatles on vinyl. Elvis. Creedence Clearwater Revival, and I'm just talking broad as and then get into some of my younger adolescent years. I can remember some Meatloaf. I can remember obviously Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath. Oh man, get on into my teens. Obviously Ozzy Osbourne, AC/DC, Iron Maiden. Metallica when they came along, obviously. I listened to a lot of hair metal, harder metal, but I mean, I would start at the cores. I would start at, give them a good foundation of old Beatles. Elvis is just great music period. And then if he wants to go down the hard rock avenue of the Black Sabbath stuff, regardless, even with Ronnie James Dio as lead singer, that's good stuff. Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, like I said, holler at me sometime. I'll try to provide you a longer list, but that's where I got. How about you, Alex? What'd you grow up with music wise?
Yeah, not a lot that's probably on vinyl these days. I thought you were gonna do all that Devil's music they probably listened to as a kid growing up, right?
Black Sabbath. I don't know. My parents weren't too keen on me listening to any of that stuff.
Yeah,
Deep Purple.
like that was a real fear from like parents back then, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah. My old man probably spinning in his grave that you could hear Judas Priest and Motley Crue on van commercials now. Motorhead, obviously that's another one I left out there. Geez, I can remember early on getting turned on to like Blue Oyster Cult, Saxon, obviously when Twisted Sister came on, big early Twisted Sister fan, all like that. So, vinyls, you can find vinyls really made a comeback and all.
Mm-hmm.
So, what'd you name some of the stuff you listen to? Enough about me.
I mean, I'm all over the place with my musical taste. I guess in terms of like something that a band that I know has vinyl, you can go out there and buy. The Black Keys was like one of the groups that I grew up
My
with.
wife loves the Black Keys.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Tiff does. Okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, because I'm just a kid of like every band that I like, every song that I like was basically on a video game, a sports video game from the mid 2000s, like Madden and MLB The Show. That was where I got into Black Keys. They have a vinyl album out for their new album, which is okay. It's a little hit and miss, but there's some older stuff that you can go back and listen to. So I guess go pick up one of those or go check it out before maybe you make that purchase. So probably that is my only thing I can think of, vinyl and a record that you can go out there and get.
Yeah, I grew up at such a great time from a musical perspective. From the the 60s stuff. I mean, there was Tom Jones stuff being played in the house. There was man, we had it all. I mean, Statler Brothers, a lot of country stuff in the house. Statler Brothers, Ronnie Millsap, you name it, and it was, as long as it wasn't the harder stuff, like I said, like Black Sabbath and all that I found out, on my own, running the streets and all like that. But a lot of the core stuff, CCR, Creedence Clearwater Revival, was played in the house quite a bit. Yeah, I had a well-rounded early start from the get-go when it comes to music, and even Bee Gees. I was a Bee Gees. I like some Bee Gees stuff. ABBA. I like some old ABBA stuff, and so I'm well-rounded.
What's the last concert you watched in person?
Oh, I think it was actually the Iron Maiden. Not long after I got here in Vegas, saw them at T-Mobile here. So
how good is the music scene's got to be pretty good in Vegas, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, not as good as what obviously it used to. Man, I went to so many concerts as a kid,
Right.
I mean, every weekend, every other weekend, we were going somewhere, seeing all the bands and all like that, whether it was Biloxi, New Orleans, Atlanta, Tallahassee, I mean, you name it, we went where. I just wish I remembered most of them,
Best concert you ever seen? Best individual concert?
Oh man, I've seen so many great ones. I mean,
anyone that sticks out that you can remember?
Guns N' Roses, during that tour, Appetite for Destruction was a great one. Man, a couple Iron Maiden shows. Kiss. I mean, I grew up a huge Kiss fan, so I've seen them multiple times. Some great shows there.
Anything that makes a good concert really stand out, other than obviously just a band that you like playing good music? Is there anything about the venue or the atmosphere, obviously audio quality, anything that really sticks out?
Not so much. I just think whether or not the opening band can get the crowd behind them and have the energy and it kind of carry over into the second band. Sometimes there were 3 band bills that would, you walk in, you're like, who the hell is this opening band? But sometimes you get lucky where the opening band you actually knew of the 3 band build. Like I think one time I saw Accept was the opening for I forget who was all on that bill. And I think just overall, just, having the energy go from, who, if it's only a 2-band bill, go from the opening. I tell you a good one that, probably most would probably laugh at, as I think it was Cinderella when they were in their opening, early stages. I saw Cinderella open up for David Lee Roth when David Lee Roth went solo. And I think that was the Eat 'em and Smile tour for David Lee Roth. And it was, I think, Cinderella's first album, Night Songs. And boy, Cinderella was just hitting big at the time, and everybody all obviously knew all the David Lee Roth stuff and all like that. And that ended up being a super great show overall. I can remember that me being blown away, and that one really sticking in my memory banks. But
Nice.
there's been so many I'm blessed. Like I said, I grew up in a time where, live music was the thing, and, all the bands and the different genres, on through hard rock into the progression of grunge in the 90s and all like that. So I was really blessed in that aspect as far as a musical base and all like that.
I've never been to a concert in my entire life, so you have to, maybe I tried to this year. I did plan on going to a Black Keys event in Pittsburgh, a concert in Pittsburgh, and they ended up canceling their tour. A lot of weird stuff happening behind the scenes, it seemed like, and so that went belly up. But yeah, never been, just felt like it would always be disappointing. And maybe I'm wrong about that. Obviously, a lot of people love going to concerts, but I just wonder, like, I can listen to it at home on Spotify and hear the best version of how that song was recorded and produced. I'm afraid of like standing outside somewhere and hearing a much worse version of it, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, look, the older I get, I don't like going to closed venue shows with lots of crowds anyway. That's why I don't go to sporting events or any major sporting events where the crowds are extremely, look, we used to try to get as close, right up to the stage and all that, and had luckily alcohol and other means to, to get through all that stuff. There's no way in hell I'd do that stuff now. No way. I mean, there have been I have lived 9 different versions. I've been 9 different people throughout my life, working on getting into number 10 at this point. It's just a maturation process and all things that I did back then. I wouldn't dream of doing now. But on the flip side, I'm very thankful to have had the experiences that I had,
Yeah. All right. Well, good fun question to end the show. So thank you for asking that.
All right, Travis, let me know. Let me know what your son picks out, how old he is and all like that. Good luck to you. Thanks for the email. That's a great way to end the show there, I think. Kind of a lighter note there. Okay, Alex and I'll be back. What do you say, Alex? Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll play it by ear a little bit. Let's tentatively put it in for Wednesday like normal, but if Tomlin holds the presser Monday and maybe there's other pressing news to discuss, learning exactly when this game, for at least you and I to learn it, when this Bengals game will take place, Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll put it that way.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow the excellent Alex Kozora at Alex_Kozora. Look for a couple of these breakdowns coming from him, specifically some of these defensive breakdowns. He's got some great videos up from this past week alone. More on the way. Scope him out. Look for he's got his own YouTube channel as well, too. Just type in Alex Kozora in that. You go right to it. Fantastic work by the rest of the crew. We'll see whether, who the Steelers play. By the time you listen to this, you probably know when the Bengals game is. Regardless, we will have the YouTube live stream Q&A Monday night as well. Next episode of this probably Wednesday morning. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, follow the directions that way. So until then, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.